The morning sun rose peacefully over Haven's Edge colony, painting the sky in shades of purple and orange. Like any other day, children walked to the colony's education center, their bags filled with tablets and lunchboxes. No one knew that this ordinary morning would change the course of galactic history. Tom Walker kicked a small rock as he walked beside his older sister Ada. At 12 years old, he always tried to match her confident stride. Ada, 14 and already showing signs of becoming a brilliant engineer like their mother, kept checking her tablet about the day's robotics project. "You think they'll let us use the new 3D printer today?" Tom asked, hoping to get his sister's attention. "Maybe, if you actually finish your safety training this time," Ada replied with a small smile. She was about to say more when a shadow fell over them. The massive ships appeared without warning. Their blue-tinted hulls reflected the morning light as they descended through the atmosphere. Each vessel was easily the size of 10 colony buildings put together. The sight stopped everyone in their tracks. "Those are Blue Crest ships," Ada whispered, her hand automatically reaching for her brother's shoulder. Everyone in the colony knew about the Blue Crests, the self-proclaimed peacekeepers of the stellar coalition who viewed humanity as dangerous upstarts. Colony sirens began to wail. Parents rushed out of their homes and workplaces, trying to reach their children. But the Blue Crests had planned this too well. Energy fields sprang up across the colony sectors, cutting off the education center from the residential areas. Tom watched in horror as smaller ships descended around the education center. They looked like giant metal wasps, their hulls bearing the distinctive crystal-like patterns of Blue Crest military vessels. A voice boomed across the colony, speaking in perfectly clear English. "This is Administrator Reed of the Stellar Coalition. We are here to secure a peaceful future for all species. Your children will be relocated to a proper education facility where they will learn the ways of galactic harmony. Resistance will only cause them harm." Inside the education center, teachers tried to keep the children calm. Mrs. Green, the head teacher, stood at the main entrance with her arms spread wide, as if she could somehow stop the aliens from entering. "They're children," she shouted at the approaching Blue Crest soldiers. "Just children." The Blue Crests moved with cold efficiency. They wore armor that made them look like walking crystals, their helmets showing no faces, only smooth, reflective surfaces. They didn't hurt anyone. They didn't need to. Their technology simply made resistance impossible. Tom felt his body become light as some kind of energy field lifted him off the ground. Around him, other children floated helplessly. Ada tried to grab his hand, but another field pushed them apart. "Tom, remember what Mom taught us," Ada called out. "Always think before you." A soft blue light pulsed through the room, and all the children fell silent, caught in some kind of stasis field. Through half-frozen awareness, Tom could see the Blue Crests moving efficiently among them, attaching small devices to their clothes. Outside, the colony's adults could only watch in helpless rage as their children were loaded onto the transport ships. Some parents tried shooting at the energy barriers, but their weapons couldn't even scratch them. Others fell to their knees, begging the silent aliens to stop. The last thing Tom saw before the stasis field fully took hold was his mother running toward the barrier, her tools still hanging from her work belt, his father right behind her. He tried to call out but couldn't move his lips. Administrator Reed's voice came over the speakers one final time. "Your children will be returned once humanity proves it can exist peacefully within the galactic community. Consider this an opportunity to reflect on your species' violent tendencies." The ships rose into the morning sky, carrying 32 children from Haven's Edge. Below, the colony's warning sirens mixed with the sounds of parents' anguish, creating a haunting melody that would be remembered across human space. The first act in this galactic drama had begun. But the Blue Crests would soon learn that taking human children wasn't just morally wrong. It was probably the biggest mistake any alien species had ever made. Tom woke up feeling cold. The stasis field had worn off, leaving him lying on a thin mattress in a room with pale blue walls. Everything around him seemed to glow with a soft, endless light that made it impossible to tell if it was day or night. "Tom." Ada's whispered voice came from the bed next to his. "Don't sit up too fast." The others got dizzy when they tried. He turned his head slowly and saw other children from Haven's Edge in similar beds arranged in neat rows. The room was huge, with high ceilings that sparkled like they were made of crushed diamonds. It would have been beautiful if it wasn't a prison. "Where are we?" Tom asked, his mouth feeling dry. Before Ada could answer, a door appeared in the previously smooth wall. It simply phased into existence, and through it walked their first clear view of a blue crest without armor. The alien was tall and slim, with skin that looked like polished blue marble. Its 4 eyes blinked in an alternating pattern, and when it spoke, its voice was surprisingly gentle. "Welcome to the Youth Harmony Education Center," the blue crest said. "I am Administrator Reed. You will find your stay here both comfortable and enlightening." Tom noticed Ada's hands ball into fists. But his sister was smart. She didn't say anything. "Not yet. Your daily schedule will include peace studies, galactic history, meditation, and music therapy," Reed continued. "Cooperate, and you'll find this experience pleasant. Resist, and well, let's focus on the pleasant path." As if on cue, more doors appeared in the walls. Through them came other children, but not humans. Tom saw aliens of different shapes and sizes, all walking in perfect lines. Their faces showed no emotion, their eyes fixed straight ahead. "Your new classmates," Reed gestured. "They've learned our ways well. In time, you will too." A young alien who looked like a walking tree turned slightly toward the human children. In its bark-like face, Tom saw a flash of something, a warning. Pity? Before he could be sure, a small device on the alien's neck blinked, and it quickly faced forward again. "Now change into your facility uniforms." Reed pointed to piles of white clothes at the foot of each bed. "Your old clothes will be recycled. You won't need reminders of home anymore." After Reed left, the human children gathered around Ada's bed. They were all between 10 and 15 years old, and they all looked to her as the oldest for guidance. "Those other kids," whispered Lucy, one of the younger ones. "They looked empty inside." "They looked broken," Ada corrected, keeping her voice low. "And that's what they want to do to us. Break us down and rebuild us their way." Tom picked up his new uniform. The material felt strange, almost alive under his fingers. "What do we do?" Ada looked around at the worried faces of her fellow Haven's Edge kids. "First, we play along. We watch. We learn. Most importantly, we remember who we are." "But what if we forget?" another child asked. "What if we end up like them?" Ada pulled out something from her sock, a small metal disc that she'd somehow kept hidden during their processing. Tom recognized it as one of their mother's engineering tools. "Mom always said that humans are different," Ada whispered, hiding the disc again carefully. "We don't just give up. We don't just survive. We figure things out. We help others. And most importantly," she gave them all a fierce look, "we stick together." A soft chime filled the room, and more doors appeared. Through them, they could see corridors leading to different areas of the facility. The next phase of their education was about to begin. "Remember," Ada said as they all stood up, "they think they're teaching us their ways, but they're about to learn about ours." The human children nodded, something sparking in their eyes that no amount of peace training would easily extinguish. In trying to tame humanity's next generation, the Blue Crests had made their first major miscalculation. They had put all the most resourceful human children together in one place. 2 weeks had passed in the Youth Harmony Education Center. Every day followed the same pattern. Wake up, meditation, peace studies, music therapy, more meditation, and then sleep. But Ada had been watching, learning, and planning. During another boring music therapy session, Ada noticed something interesting. Whenever they played certain notes on their musical instruments, The facility's glowing walls flickered slightly. It was so quick that most wouldn't notice, but Ada had inherited her mother's sharp eye for details. "Tom," she whispered during their daily mealtime, "I need you to make a mistake in music class tomorrow." Tom looked confused but nodded. He trusted his sister completely. The next day, when they were all playing their crystal harps, Tom deliberately hit a wrong note, one much lower than they were supposed to play. For just a second, the door's outline became visible in the smooth wall. Ada smiled. She had found their first weakness. During the next few days, she carefully watched their guard, Miles. Unlike other blue crests, this young guard sometimes showed interest in the human children's conversations. Once, he even helped a smaller child who had tripped, instead of just reporting them for being disorderly. "Hey," Miles said one day when he found Ada looking at the wall patterns during their short break time. "You should be meditating." "I was just admiring the architecture," Ada lied smoothly. "It reminds me of the crystal formations we studied back home." Something changed in Miles's face. "You studied crystals?" "Of course. We learned about lots of things in our colony. Engineering, biology, music." Ada watched his reaction carefully. "We're not as primitive as you think." Before Miles could respond, another guard approached. But Ada had seen enough. Doubt in his eyes, questions forming in his mind. That night, Ada gathered the human children in their sleeping room. They had discovered that the monitoring systems didn't work well when they all hummed together. Something about the combined frequencies created a kind of sound shadow. "The walls use crystal technology," Ada explained quietly, "just like our colony's mining equipment. Sound affects them, especially the low frequencies we're not supposed to use in music therapy." "But how does that help us?" Lucy asked. "We can make the doors visible, but they're still locked." Tom grinned. "Remember what Mom used to say about locks, Ada?" "Every lock has a key," Ada replied. "And every key has a frequency." She pulled out her mother's metal disc. Over the past 2 weeks, she had carefully scratched markings on it, turning it into a basic tuning fork. "But what about the other kids?" someone asked. "The alien children. We can't just leave them here." Ada's face became serious. "We won't. That's not what humans do." She looked at each of them. Haven's Edge was built on helping each other. Mom and Dad always said that's what makes humans special. We look out for everyone, not just ourselves. "The tree kid tried to warn us on our first day," Tom added. "Maybe they want to help too. They just can't." "Exactly," Ada said. "Those control devices on their necks. They use the same crystal tech. If we can disrupt the doors, we can probably disrupt those too." A soft chime indicated lights out was approaching. The children quickly separated, but with new hope in their hearts. "Tomorrow during music therapy," Ada whispered as they got into their beds, "watch my signals. When I nod, everyone needs to play the lowest note possible, all at once." As the lights dimmed, Tom looked at his sister. "What if it doesn't work?" "Then we try something else," Ada said firmly. "That's another thing humans are good at. We don't give up." In the darkness, none of them could see Miles standing just outside their room, his hand resting thoughtfully on his weapon. He had heard more than Ada realized, and now he had some serious thinking to do about what was right and what was wrong. In the vast meeting chamber of the Blue Crest High Council on Crystal Prime, Administrator Reed stood proudly before the gathered leaders. Holographic displays showed the progress of their human subjects. As you can see, Reed gestured to the images of children, sitting quietly in meditation. The human younglings are learning our peaceful ways. Their aggressive tendencies are diminishing. The council members nodded in approval, their crystalline bodies reflecting the room's light. None of them noticed that the children in the images were sitting just a little too still, their faces just a little too blank. One council member raised a hand. "And what of their parents? The human government?" Reed's smile widened. "Exactly as predicted. They rage, they threaten, but they do nothing. Their ships are retreating from our borders. They know they cannot match our power. Suddenly, a junior officer burst into the chamber, a serious breach of protocol. High Council, we have concerns. The council leader's 4 eyes narrowed. Explain. Ships are vanishing. The officer reported. Not just human military vessels, all of them. Cargo ships, mining vessels, even their civilian transports. They're all going dark. Hiding in fear, no doubt. Reed dismissed with a wave. This proves our education program is working. They finally understand their place in the galaxy. But the officer wasn't finished. That's not all. The humans have shut down all their trading posts. Their colonies are refusing to sell food and materials to coalition worlds. And he hesitated. Speak, commanded the council leader. Our deep space sensors show unusual activity in the void between systems. Something's moving out there. Many somethings. But they're using some kind of technology we've never seen before. We can barely detect them. Back on Haven's edge, Tom and Ada's parents sat in a hastily converted military briefing room. Around them, other parents from the colony listened as Fleet Commander Wilson explained the plan. The Blue Crests think they understand humans, Wilson said, pointing to a star map. They think taking our children will make us submit. She smiled grimly. They don't understand parents at all. How many ships? Tom's father asked quietly. As the colony's head engineer, he had been working non-stop helping to modify the fleet. All of them, Wilson replied. Every ship we have, but not the way they expect. The map zoomed out, showing hundreds of tiny dots moving through space. The dots were human ships, but they weren't retreating. They were spreading out, surrounding coalition space in a web of steel and determination. Right now, they think we're running away, Wilson continued. By the time they realize what's really happening, it will be too late. No coalition world will be able to move a single ship without us knowing. And then, asked Lucy's mother, her hands clenched tight. Then we give them a choice. Return our children or face complete isolation. No trade, no travel, no communications. Every coalition world cut off from each other. In the facility, unaware of their parents' plans, the human children continued their act of peaceful compliance. But during music therapy, Ada caught Tom's eye and nodded slightly. It was time. As 132 human voices began to hum, while their hands moved to the crystal harps. The sound started low, almost too low to hear. The alien children looked up, feeling something different in the air. Miles, standing guard by the door, felt his skin tingle. He looked at Ada, saw the determination in her eyes, and made his decision. Slowly, carefully, he reached up and removed his communicator. In space, human ships continued their silent movement through the void. On coalition worlds, worried leaders began to realize that their space lanes were mysteriously empty, and in the High Council chamber, alarms began to sound. The Blue Crests were about to learn a crucial lesson. There's nothing more dangerous than desperate parents, and nothing more resourceful than their children. The music room erupted into chaos as 32 human children played the lowest note on their crystal harps all at once. The walls shimmered like water, and every door in the facility suddenly became visible. Now, Ada shouted, pulling out her mother's modified tuning fork. She struck it against her chair, and the sound made the nearest door's lock click open. Guards rushed in, but Miles was faster. He used his security card to lock the main entrance, buying them time. The control room is 3 levels up, he said quickly. That's where they monitor everything. Tom looked at the alien children, still sitting frozen with their control devices blinking on their necks. We need to help them first. Ada nodded, striking her tuning fork again. This time, she held it near one of the tree-like alien's neck devices. The device sparked and fell off, and the alien child gasped like someone taking their first real breath in years. Everyone pair up, Ada commanded. 1 human, 1 alien. Work fast. The human children moved quickly, using their tuning forks. Ada had secretly made copies during craft sessions to free the alien children. Each freed child's eyes lit up with awareness, then determination. In the control room, Administrator Reed watched in horror as his screen showed chaos spreading through the facility. Impossible. They're just children. Human children, one of his officers corrected, backing away from the monitors. And they're not alone anymore. The freed alien children were remembering who they were. The tree-like beings formed living barriers to block guards. Small, quick aliens who looked like silver foxes helped scout ahead. Floating jellyfish-like children used their natural electricity to short out security systems. Tom led a group to the facility's kitchen, where they gathered food and medical supplies. Mom always said an army moves on its stomach, he explained to his alien friends. Miles guided Ada and a strike team toward the control room. Reed will try to call for help, he warned, and he has an emergency stasis field generator. Then we'll need a bigger sound, Ada said, looking at her team. Among them was a young alien who looked like a giant cricket. Can your people still make sound vibrations? The alien child clicked excitedly. Soon, all the cricket-like children gathered together. When they rubbed their leg plates, the sound made the whole facility shake. In the corridors, guards found themselves facing something they'd never trained for. Organized groups of children using teamwork and creativity. Human kids helped tall alien children reach high controls. Small alien children carried messages through maintenance tunnels. Block the exits. Reed screamed into his communicator. Use the peace enforcement fields. But the fields weren't working. The combined sounds of cricket children vibrations, human singing, and Ada's tuning forks created a frequency that made the crystal technology go haywire. Lucy, the youngest human, discovered she could understand the jellyfish aliens' light patterns. She translated their warnings about guard movements, helping everyone stay one step ahead. The control room door won't hold much longer, Miles said, as Ada's team reached their goal. Inside, they could hear Reed shouting orders. Ada looked at her mixed team of human and alien children, ready to show them what real harmony looks like. The door burst open. Reed and his officers found themselves facing not just escaped prisoners, but a united force. Human children stood shoulder to tentacle with alien children, even their former guard. Miles stood with them. This is harmony, Ada declared. Not forcing everyone to be the same, but working together because we choose to. Reed reached for his stasis generator, but a small silver fox alien had already stolen it. Outside the facility, alarms began to sound as the first human ships appeared in the sky. The children's victory was almost complete, but the biggest surprise was yet to come. How their actions would change the galaxy forever. News spread across the galaxy faster than light speed. Someone in the facility, probably Miles, had started broadcasting everything through the Blue Crest's own emergency channels. Aliens across the coalition watched in amazement as their screens filled with incredible scenes. Human children were not destroying the facility as everyone feared. Instead, they were turning it into something entirely different. In the former meditation room, Tom and the tree children had set up a medical station. They used the soft moss that grew naturally on the tree children's bark to make bandages. Careful, Tom said as he wrapped a small cut on a jellyfish child's tentacle. Your light patterns say you're feeling better, right? Lucy, sitting nearby, translated the jellyfish child's flashing lights. They say it doesn't hurt anymore. They also say, thank you for treating them like a person, not a prisoner. In what used to be the Peace Studies classroom, Ada and the cricket children had created a command center. They used the cricket's sound vibrations to keep the facility's crystal technology confused, preventing any outside forces from taking control. Look at these readings, one of the Blue Crest scientists told their leaders as they watched the broadcasts. The frequency patterns, they're not random noise. The human and cricket children are working together to create a completely new form of sound technology. Administrator Reed sat in a corner of the control room, now under guard by a team of silver fox alien children who moved too quickly to be caught. He watched in disbelief as everything he thought he knew about humans crumbled. The screens showed human children sharing their food with alien children who hadn't tasted their favorite meals in years. They showed them teaching each other games from their home worlds, mixing rules to create new ones that everyone could play. Impossible, Reed whispered. They were supposed to be violent, primitive, unable to cooperate with other species. Miles, who stood watching over Reed, shook his head. You only saw what you expected to see. You never really looked. More broadcasts reached Coalition worlds. They showed Ada explaining Earth's engineering principles to fascinated alien children. They showed Tom learning the tree children's photosynthesis dance. They showed Lucy creating a new language that mixed human words with jellyfish-like patterns. In the High Council chamber, the Blue Crest leaders watched as their perfect plan fell apart. Not through violence or force, but through something they hadn't counted on: the natural ability of children to make friends and work together. The human fleet has surrounded all major Coalition worlds, an officer reported nervously, but they haven't fired a single shot. They're just waiting. On the screens, Ada stood up in the facility's main hall. Around her, hundreds of freed children, human and alien alike, gathered to listen. We're sending this message to everyone watching, she said clearly. What you did was wrong. Taking children from their families is wrong. Trying to force everyone to be the same is wrong. Tom stepped up beside his sister. But we're going to show you a better way. Look around this room. Every child here is different. We have different bodies, different ways of thinking, different talents. And that's what makes us strong. The silver fox children zipped around the room, their fur creating trails of light. The tree children raised their branches, creating a beautiful canopy. The jellyfish children floated near the ceiling, their bodies glowing in patterns that Lucy translated. Together we are free. The cricket children began a soft song, one that human voices soon joined. It wasn't the forced harmony of the Blue Crest's peace music. It was something new, a true harmony made of different voices choosing to work together. Across Coalition space, people of all species watched and listened, and for the first time, many of them began to question everything they had been taught about humans, about children, and about what real peace actually meant. 3 days after the children took control of the facility, the first transport ships landed. But they weren't just human ships. Vessels from every Coalition species touched down, carrying worried parents who had seen the broadcasts and demanded to rescue their children. The Blue Crest High Council had no choice. Their own people had turned against them after watching the broadcasts. The sight of children helping each other, regardless of species, had touched hearts across the galaxy. Tom stood at the facility's main entrance, helping to organize the reunions. A line of tree children rushed to meet their tall, ancient-looking parents, who wrapped them in branch hugs that seemed to go on forever. "Thank you, human child," one of the tree parents said, dropping a small seed into Tom's hand. "From this day, you are family to us." Lucy was busy translating the excited light patterns of jellyfish families reuniting. The whole room sparkled with their joy. The cricket children's parents filled the air with happy songs, while silver fox families ran circles around each other so fast they looked like rings of light. In the High Council chamber, Administrator Reed faced judgment. But it wasn't the council who judged him. It was a panel made up of representatives from every species, including humans. "Your intention was peace," the panel's leader said, "but you tried to force it through control and fear. Look at what these children achieved through friendship and understanding." Miles, who had been promoted to chief of security for the whole facility, watched as Reed was sentenced to work with the children he had once imprisoned, not as their jailer, but as their student. "The facility will remain open," Miles announced to the gathered families, "but not as a prison. From now on, it will be a real school, one where children from all species can choose to come and learn together." Ada stood with her parents, watching as more families arrived. Her mother couldn't stop hugging her, while her father kept showing her proud tears every few minutes. "You did so well," her mother whispered. using sound frequencies to disrupt crystal technology. That's my brilliant girl. I had good teachers, Ada replied, hugging them both. And good friends. She waved at a group of cricket children who were teaching their sound technique to fascinated human scientists. Fleet Commander Wilson met with the coalition leaders to establish new treaties. The terms were simple: no more taking of children, no more forced harmony, and a new council would be formed where all species had an equal voice. We could have started a war, Wilson told them. Instead, our children showed us a better way. As the day ended, the facility's main hall was filled with families of all species. The tree children's parents had grown fresh fruits for everyone. Jellyfish families created beautiful light shows. Cricket families played music that made everyone want to dance. Tom found Ada staring out a window at the stars. "What are you thinking about?" he asked his sister. "About how they thought taking us would make humans weaker," she said. "But it made the whole galaxy stronger instead." Lucy joined them, followed by friends from every species. "The jellyfish kids want to know if we'll visit them underwater someday," she translated with a grin. "And the tree kids are offering to grow us special breathing leaves so we can." Above the facility, the last of the human fleet began to withdraw. They weren't needed anymore. A new kind of peace had been born, not one enforced by rules and punishment, but one built on friendship and understanding. In years to come, people would tell the story of the human children who turned a prison into a school, enemies into friends, and fear into hope. The Blue Crests had been right about one thing: taking the human children did change the galaxy, just not in the way anyone expected.